Okay, without further ado, let's get to our guest here. And with us in the studio tonight, we have Representative Major Thibaut sitting across from us, and he's got a few things he's going to discuss. And Major, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great, David. Thank you.
All right, well, I want to thank you so much for being with us tonight. We just have a lot of good quality guests that we're getting in here, and you're one of them. Like I said, a lot of people go into the voting booth and they are presented with all of these amendments. Basically, you've been in the legislature, you know what's going on. Why don't you just kind of maybe run down what caused these two amendments to be on our ballot, and maybe give us the pros and the cons of each one of them.
Well, in this election, the October 2nd election, voters will have two amendments to vote on, and then in the November 2nd election, the November election, I think there will be 12 proposed constitutional amendments.
Well, we got a lot to go over.
Just to give you a little background, in order to become a constitutional amendment that will go on the ballot, it has to be passed by the legislature on a 2/3 vote. So it takes a lot, and getting 2/3 in many cases is very, very tough. But undoubtedly, the legislature this past year felt like these amendments were important enough for the voters to take a look at and decide. The first amendment that you'll have the chance to vote on in October, or on October 2nd, has to do with the session dates. And to most people who, just that ordinary average citizen out there, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it really is. Louisiana is one of two states that doesn't start their regular sessions until March, and the fiscal year runs with a start date of July 1st. So when we start in March, the end of March, usually run right up until that July 1st deadline, and the big thing about that is many of our municipalities are dependent on state funds. So if there's a cut in funds that come to them, they don't have a whole lot of time to change their budget and make changes depending on the amount of funds that are allocated to them. So I voted for this amendment. I thought it was something we should propose. We should do. It's not drastic. It's only shifting the session up 2 weeks from where it is now.
Okay.
But by moving it up 2 weeks, it gives those, especially our municipalities, a little bit extra time to adjust to whatever revenue shortage they're going to have, or in other years where they may have a little bit more revenue, which we hadn't seen that here lately.
Right.
But
right.
So I think the earlier we can do it. Most states, like I said, begins in January, and there was a push to get into January and February. We didn't get that far, but at least we're trying to move it up some, and I think that's a good start.
Okay. I see it was sponsored by Senator Neil Riser from Columbia. Do you know him?
I sure do. Neil Riser is a first-term senator, a really good guy. He actually represents pretty much northeast from the tip of the state at the Arkansas line all the way down to West Feliciana. We represent Angola Penitentiary together, so we spent a good bit of time together.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So basically, I guess if you want to wrap it up in a nutshell, Amendment 1 would be kind of the
Amendment 1. That's right. Amendment 1 basically moves the session dates, makes it a little bit earlier, a couple of weeks earlier than what they normally are, and I would urge voters to support it. If you want to vote against it, it basically just leaves things the way they are, which means in odd-numbered years, we would start, the legislature would get started on the last Monday in April, and then on even-numbered years, like this year, 2010, we would get started on the last Monday in March.
Okay.
If you vote for it, you're voting to move it up 2 weeks to the second Monday in April in odd-numbered years, and to the second Monday in March on even-numbered years.
Did this amendment have any problems passing?
Different people had different opinions. I can remember, for instance, one representative who sits in front of me is the Speaker Pro Tem, so second in command there. Right. He's a CPA by trade, and it kind of it is considered a part-time job, and it gets in the CPA season,
Right.
and tax season. So he kind of had a problem with it, but different people, that legislature is filled with a diverse group of people who have different backgrounds, different full-time jobs, and I guess it just depended on, what was best for them
Right.
and for their constituents,
Right.
whoever they represent.
Kind of what angle they're looking at it from.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, very good. So I think I got my mind made up on amendment number 1. Let's talk about number 2.
Number 2, the second amendment that you'll be voting on in the October 2nd election has to do with the Governor's Office of Security and Emergency Preparedness, otherwise referred to as GOSEP. Basically, right now, this amendment, GOSEP is an office that is under the governor's watch and deals specifically with emergency preparedness type issues, like we have a hurricane. They help coordinate with military, National Guard, municipalities to provide the services and do what we need to in those times of emergency. Many times when, say, a Hurricane Katrina or Rita or Gustav, as we've seen recently, people are pulled from different departments, whether it be the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, Department of Administration, all of those, many different departments to come and fill these spots within GOSEP. There are some full-time GOSEP employees, but as you can imagine, when we have a crisis situation, they need to be able to hire people and put people on staff
Right.
when those problems do occur, and in a very quick and efficient manner. Right now, there is a conflict between the PSC, Public Service Commission, as to whether GOSEP employees, these people that they pull in during times of emergency, should be classified as classified workers or unclassified workers, and should they fall under the civil service rules, which we probably don't have enough time to get into what all that means, but basically when you hire someone through the civil service process, like many positions are considered classified through the state, there are different procedures and protections in place, some of which can take a very long time to hire on a person. And in emergency situations, many feel as if, there isn't enough time
Right.
to be pulling people from different departments or hiring outside people to fill this emergency preparedness office.
Right.
So a vote for this amendment would allow the GOSEP office, all employees, to be considered unclassified.
I see.
That's how the military is structured, so it would give them a little bit more leeway. It would speed up things in times of emergency. I mentioned a conflict right now. There's actually been a lawsuit filed on the issue, and basically the courts found that we're going to wait and see what this amendment, how people want to vote on it.
Okay.
And if you voted against it, it would leave the conflict between the statutes and the Constitution of whether the employees of the GOSEP office should be members of classified or unclassified.
I see.
I supported the amendment because very recently, in the last few years, we've seen a lot of different hurricanes especially, and the people and municipalities and everybody really depends on the state for a lot of resources, and definitely in times of emergency, we need our not only our governor and all the different branches coordinated, but we need to do it in a quick manner.
Right.
They had a lot to do with the different hurricanes. I'm sure they played a huge role in the BP oil spill.
Right.
And any other emergencies that might come about, they need to be able to move quick and efficiently. So I think allowing them to do that as fast as they can and not having red tape and
Right.
holding things up.
Definitely.
So I'd vote for it.
Definitely.
And then, like I said, in November, there will be 12 different constitutional amendments that you'll have a chance to vote on. One thing, David, that I am going to do, and I'm glad that you invited me to come tonight.
Sure.
I've had a number of calls about these amendments, and like you said, most people pay attention to who am I going to vote for, whether it be for city council or
Right.
for school board or mayor or president of the United States. But
That's it.
a lot of times they don't have enough information on what these amendments mean. I've had a lot of calls, and what I'm going to do this week, I'm going to send something out, according to the voters out there, explaining the amendments, explaining the pros and cons to each one, and also saying why I think it is a good or bad idea.
Sure. Yeah, good idea.
Now, I would have liked generally to send that out before early voting, but I didn't know if people, really wanted the
Right.
information.
Right.
So we're going to do it here this week, and then for the November one, we'll get the information out on the 12 different ones before early voting
Okay.
to give people an opportunity to bone up or study on.
Excellent. Very good. Okay, we got about 1 minute, maybe a minute and a half left. What I want to do now is, and thank you so much for that explanation. That was great. I'm very well informed now, as our listeners are. What's going on with Representative Major Tebow right now in your headquarters, and what are you doing right now?
Well, we're always really busy. We get a lot of calls and a lot of people who stop by who need some direction and with state services. Who are the right people to talk to? Who are the right departments? And how do we get there? So we're constantly coordinating to try and get people to the right place when they need something. We'll have a special session this year in February, and that has to do with redistricting and how the lines are drawn based on the new census counts.
Right.
And then we'll go into our regular session in March. So there's a lot to do beforehand and getting ready for different legislation that may come before us. So.
All right, Major Tebow, if you just joined us, is with us, Representative Major Tebow. We're talking about the constitutional amendments on the next ballot here in Point Capee coming up October the 2nd. Major, how can people get in contact with you if they want to communicate with you?
Anyway, best way is to call the office, 225-638-3811. Our office is located on 2004 Falls River Drive, right past Walmart. You can stop in, or you can email at TBout, THIBAUTM, at legis, legis.state.la.us.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Representative Major Tebow. Glad to have you along with us this evening.
Glad to be here.
And
Thanks.
Sure, and you're more than welcome anytime to come back and talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Thank you.
I got a break coming up, and on the other side of this break, we're going to have Mr. George Colbert with the Colbert School of Driving. Don't miss it.